Vartan Badalian, transportation analyst with GreenBiz. According to recent findings by Bloomberg, the US, like 18 other countries before it, has officially crossed a pivotal EV adoption tipping point, entering the era of mass adoption. But is the global EV ecosystem ready? As we enter this new era for EVs, some things have to evolve, which is why my overhyped trend is celebrating the installation of new EV charging stations. Don't get me wrong, we need many more public level 2 and DC fast charging stations to support 100% EV adoption. And yes, numerous studies show that most countries are far from having enough public charging stations to support the millions of EVs on the road in the future. However, we are no longer deploying the first few hundred stations for the early EV adopters. It's time to scale up. But way too much emphasis is placed on simply hitting a number of installs and not enough on all the other aspects necessary for meeting the moment. That is why my underhyped trend has to be EV charging uptime and reliability. It doesn't matter if a new charging station is installed or a new commitment is announced if a driver cannot reliably charge their vehicle. One recent survey from San Francisco Bay Area found that 25% of all public DC charging stations were out of order or otherwise unusable. And as goes California, so goes the world. Now, automakers are releasing incredible EV models that consumers and fleet owners love. But how long can drivers endure charging hiccups until they've returned to the internal combustion engine? And how many drivers and fleets will delay adoption until these hurdles are overcome? There's good news ahead. For example, in the US, the Biden administration has introduced EV charging standards brought about by the bipartisan infrastructure law, including proposed charging uptime standards of 97%, which should push EV charging providers and operators to offer improved services. In the end, the future is electric, but if charging hurdles continue, we will delay the transition and will spend billions of dollars on infrastructure that is not working almost 1/4 of the time.
I'm Sherrie Totoki, Director of Startup Programs with GreenBiz. When it comes to climate tech startups, my overhyped trend is venture capital as the sole source of funding. While venture capital infuses some much needed cash into early stage companies, it can come with downsides for entrepreneurs, such as relinquishing equity and control and high expectations to quickly recoup an investment. We need a mix of more founder-friendly sources to fill the commercialization gaps and scale climate technologies. Philanthropy is one source fulfilling this gap. ClimateWorks Foundation and the newly launched Waverly Foundation are two organizations infusing billions of dollars into the space. Funding for earlier stage companies through revenue-based financing and crowdfunding are also becoming more accessible. Companies such as Enduring Planet and WeFunder don't require giving up a large percentage of equity. We're recently seeing unprecedented capital flowing from the government, with $370 billion earmarked by the federal government under the Inflation Reduction Act and California's $54 billion in climate legislation. There will be a cascade of opportunities for startups to tap into. This brings me to my underhyped trend: investing in startups at the earliest stages, especially those in hard-to-abate sectors. In a recent PwC report, just 25% of all startup funding is channeled into technologies that have the potential to reduce over 80% of emissions. In the same report, the number of seed and Series A investments has remained largely stagnant since 2018. Industries such as shipping and the built environment are both highly polluting, yet underrepresented when it comes to funding due to their high capital costs and longer timelines. With PitchBook projecting the climate tech market reaching nearly $1.4 trillion by 2027, there's room for startups at every stage and sector to attract diversified funding and tackle even the highest polluting sectors.